Good evening. In 1 month's time, on May the 6th, Londoners will go to the polls to elect a mayor. And today, the current mayor, Sadiq Khans, set out his vision for the capital under his leadership. He wants to establish a new commission to look into how to tackle drug-related crime, including the possibility of decriminalising cannabis. But the Prime Minister's spokeswoman says he has no power to do that. Our political correspondent Simon Harris has more.
London is still in lockdown, but political campaigning is allowed, which meant some deft footwork by the mayor to obey social distancing rules during a visit to an after-school club in Camden. Sadiq Khan launched his manifesto today and told Londoners if they re-elect him, he'll set up a drugs commission to make recommendations on whether cannabis should be allowed.
What I'm going to do, should I be re-elected as mayor, is bring together a group of experts in a number of areas to look into whether we should be legalising cannabis. I'm particularly
Do you
concerned...
favour legalising cannabis?
Well, I think we should look into it. We shouldn't prejudge the outcome of the Independent Drugs Commission.
The mayor's main rival, Conservative candidate Sean Bailey, has yet to publish his manifesto. He doesn't think much of the Khan plan.
Why is the mayor wasting our time and our money on something that he has no powers to deliver? This commission won't make anybody safer in London. It won't give anybody a place to live. He needs to focus on what he can deliver. I think this is a trick to make us not focus on the fact that he's failed to deliver any progress in London at all.
But among the other major parties, there is enthusiasm for decriminalising some drugs.
Cannabis policing takes up an enormous amount of time. It could be better spent building up stronger local communities, working to prevent crime. We know the war on drugs has failed. We don't need another review to look at that.
The Liberal Democrats have long argued that cannabis should be legalised, so I'm glad if the mayor's finally starting to look at that option, but we know from his poor record in office that he says a lot and doesn't do very much, so we'll wait to see, won't we?
Sadiq Khan's manifesto includes commitments to end rough sleeping in London, build 10,000 council homes and extend the ultra-low emissions zone in October. Noticeably absent from Sadiq Khan's manifesto this time is any promise of a fares freeze. 5 years ago it was his most controversial policy, with a price tag of £640 million. But with Transport for London now relying on government handouts to stay afloat, the mayor has no room to manoeuvre when it comes to setting fares.
And that's one of the reasons why I'm saying the choice of May the 6th is quite clear. A mayor who stands up for Londoners versus a Tory mayor who'll be in the pocket of the government.
Do you regret you can't freeze fares again?
I do.
1 month today, Londoners will have their say on who gets to run City Hall for the next 3 years.
Simon, how serious is he about legalising cannabis then?
Well, the mayor is serious about setting up a commission to investigate drugs use in London, but the government is equally serious that drugs policy is not in the mayor's gift. And this afternoon, Downing Street said that Boris Johnson has absolutely no intention of legalising cannabis. Now, the mayor's manifesto runs to around 100 pages, and it mentions a number of things over which the mayor has no control, like rent controls and a possible tax on disposable coffee cups, which are things that the mayor just doesn't have the power to implement. Sadiq Khan's argument is that if he's re-elected, the office of mayor will give him the platform to campaign for policy changes, to campaign to the government. Whether the government takes any notice is another matter.
Isn't it? OK, Simon, thank you. And here is a full list of the candidates running for Mayor of London in the elections on May the 6th. This is the list, and it's also on our website. Just search for ITV London. Now, it's less than a month to go until the London mayoral elections, and a new poll suggests Sadiq Khan is still way ahead. The YouGov poll has him at 47%. Our political correspondent Simon Harris is here. Simon, that's a big lead, isn't it, 1 month out?
Yes, Duncan, this will be quite a troubling poll for the Conservatives and their candidate Sean Bailey, because it shows that with 4 weeks to go until election day, Mr Bailey is not closing the gap on Sadiq Khan. The poll was carried out by YouGov for the Mile End Institute, which is part of Queen Mary's University. And it has the current mayor, who's standing for Labour, on 47%. Sean Bailey is in second place on 26%, and then quite a long way behind in third place is the Green Party candidate Sian Berry on 9%, with Louisa Porritt for the Liberal Democrats on 7%. Now, of course, this is just one opinion poll. It's a snapshot of what voters think now. But it does show that the gap between the two men hasn't changed since the last YouGov survey back in November. And for Mr Bailey to come from this far behind and overtake Mr Khan in just 4 weeks is a huge challenge. And of course, this is an election campaign being carried out in very unusual circumstances because of lockdown. At the moment, according to this poll, it might be a two-horse race, but it's far from a close race.
OK, Simon, thank you. And a full list of all the candidates standing for London Mayor next month is on our website. Just search for ITV London. Next, to a row about a mural covering a Crossrail wall in Newham. It's expected to be Europe's longest art project and is supposed to showcase what people think of the area. So what could possibly be the problem? Well, the writing on the wall refers to crime and murder. Our political correspondent Simon Harris is here. What's this all about, Simon?
Well, this is the extraordinary story of a 2-kilometre-long mural called the Newham Trackside Wall, which was commissioned by Crossrail to celebrate the Elizabeth Line, London's flagship transport project, which is a mere £4 billion over budget and at least 3 years late. With that sort of pedigree, you might ask what could possibly go wrong. Well, the mural includes a poem which praises North Woolwich and likens it to a village. It has everything, all in one small area, and everyone knows everyone. The only negative thing is the crime and the murders, which has been increasing. Unsurprisingly, that hasn't gone down well with Newham Council, which wants that part of the mural cancelled. We had a statement a short time ago from Newham Council which said, the council strongly believes that the mural does not reflect the borough. We want Newham to be a place where people want to live, work and visit. We do not want to give the impression that it is unsafe to do so. Well, a short time ago, we spoke to the man who's ultimately in charge of Crossrail, the Transport Commissioner, Andy Byford.
Well, I've only just become aware of that mural that's being put up as part of the Crossrail project. My focus is very much on getting the project finished and getting the railway open. I've asked the Crossrail team to have a look at it. I'm aware of the issue and we'll report back once we know what the plan is.
Tonight, Duncan, I understand that offending part of the mural is going to be covered up while Crossrail bosses decide what to do next after talking to the artist and the local community. OK, Simon, thank you very much.
For the last 70 years, the Duke of Edinburgh and Her Majesty the Queen have called London their home. While they have spent much of the last year living at Windsor Castle, Buckingham Palace is their official place of residence. It was here that the Duke held his final official engagement 4 years ago, before retiring from public duties at the age of 96. Our correspondent Simon Harris looks back now on his life of service in the capital as the longest-serving royal consort in British history.
For almost 7 decades, Prince Philip was a fixture at royal engagements in London. From his final public appearance, taking the salute at a march past by Royal Marines in front of Buckingham Palace, to his first 69 years earlier in the Royal Albert Hall and the annual boxing tournament of the Federation of London Boys Clubs.
The Duke of Edinburgh, patron of the Federation, watched all the battles with keen enjoyment.
Over the decades, the Federation of London Boys Clubs evolved into London Youth, and the Prince was still patron when the organisation celebrated its 130th anniversary with a party at Buckingham Palace.
When would I ever get a chance to speak to the Duke of Edinburgh? It was quite cool. And make it onto the Twitter page, like, that was my highlight as well.
Nima Robley and Victoria Azubike were both invited. Nima had already experienced the Prince's sense of humour at an earlier meeting.
When I met him in Cedars, I wasn't sure what he said, how did you get here? I told him that I came from Somalia, and he said to me, were you dragged here and were you screaming? And I said, oh, no, I got here. I was quite happy, yeah.
At the garden party, Victoria was one of the hosts as the Prince met other young Londoners.
For our generation, when we think of the royal people, the royal family, it's sometimes like they're so far off or just like so uptight almost. But he was just so real, and he came across like he was just himself. So for me, it was just like, wow, like he's interesting.
One part of London was to have a unique significance in the Prince's life, Greenwich. Alongside his best-known title, the Duke of Edinburgh was also Baron Greenwich. In 2012, he was instrumental in securing royal status for the borough.
I think Greenwich meant a great deal to him. I mean, of course, being Baron Greenwich and the fact that he was a trustee at the National Maritime Museum, the fact that he was engaged very much with the Cutty Sark.
That project above all sealed the link between Baron Greenwich and the borough.
That famous and beautiful old tea clipper, Cutty Sark, has for long been in use for the training of cadets of the Thames Nautical Training College, HMS Worcester. Now, the 84-year-old clipper has been taken over by the Duke of Edinburgh as president of the Cutty Sark Preservation Society.
In the 1950s, an appeal for £250,000 was launched to save the ship. A dry dock was built next to the Thames. Prince Philip laid the foundation stone. After the Cutty Sark was devastated by fire during renovation work in 2007, the Prince was again on hand to oversee her return to glory. Prince Philip's naval career may have been cut short by his marriage to a reigning monarch, but he never lost his love of all things maritime.
When Prince Philip visited the Navy League's boat training centre at Ravensgate on the Thames, it was a big day for the Sea Cadets and Rangers.
His interest in encouraging young people to take up rewarding pastimes led to one of the most enduring legacies, the Duke of Edinburgh's award. John Green, a 17-year-old from Silvertown, was the first person to receive a gold award at Buckingham Palace in 1957.
We had no money. My parents had 5 children. We had nothing. To go to the palace, I borrowed my brother's suit. we were just poor, very, very poor people. It was an amazing thing that happened to me, just an amazing thing. Soon after I got it, the people at work said, bring it in, bring your medal in tomorrow, bring your medal in. And I took it in. Oh, is that all you got? Yes, that's all I got.
Wildlife was another of Prince Philip's passions. He was president of the Zoological Society of London for 17 years and a frequent visitor to London Zoo. In the 1950s and 60s, the Prince was a fixture on London's glamorous social scene, one of the most sought-after VIP guests at society events. In later years, he adopted a lower profile, sometimes travelling around London in his own private taxi. There were times when he might have missed the climate of his childhood home on the Greek island of Corfu, like here at the age of 90, spending 4 hours on a cold and wet River Thames during the Queen's Diamond Jubilee pageant. But by then, Prince Philip had spent more than 60 years in the role that defined his life, the longest-serving royal consort in British history.
Well, Simon's joined us here at Buckingham Palace, and we've seen all afternoon a steady stream of people coming to pay their respects and to leave flowers, but we're actually being told not to do that, aren't we?
Yes, the official advice from the government for the safety and well-being of people is for members of the public not to turn up at any royal palaces and not to leave flowers. Obviously, crowds are not encouraged during the pandemic. The royal family has asked that people shouldn't leave flowers, that instead of flowers they should make a donation to charity. The coronavirus pandemic has, of course, changed all of the carefully prepared plans for what was meant to happen after the Duke of Edinburgh's death. Originally, there was to be a period of lying at rest just down the Mall at St James's Palace before a final journey by the Duke from St James's Palace past Buckingham Palace to Windsor Castle for the funeral. Well, that won't now happen. There will be no procession, no final journey, largely because they don't want any crowds. And there are other changes too, although tonight actually Westminster Abbey has got a bell tolling once every minute for 99 minutes for his 99 years. But other changes include no traditional books of condolence. Instead, there is an online book of condolence on the royal website for people to leave their messages. The coronavirus epidemic has also changed the election campaign, and the Duke's death has meant that the official period of mourning means that there will be no campaigning by any of the parties in the election for the Mayor of London, the London Assembly and some of the councils in the home counties, at least for the next few days. We don't know for how long, but definitely there will be no campaigning over the weekend.
OK, Simon, thanks very much.